Hello and welcome once again to Beatle University. I, of course, am Professor Moptop, and I am here to tell you about 3 Beatles songs. You're going to hear about them in very great detail when I send you all individual emails, as I do each and every week. The first of 3 songs that you're going to hear about is Please Mr. Postman. Now, it was originally recorded by a girl group, and it was on the Motown label, which were 2 real favorites of the Beatles. Now, for the first album, which was Please Please Me, they had all the original tracks that they had, and there was also, they needed to fill the rest of the album with cover versions of songs that they knew. They didn't have a whole lot of input into this. They told George Martin and Brian Epstein which songs that they were able to perform quickly and record in the studio, and it was up to them to decide. For the second album, they gave the Beatles much more control. For Please Mr. Postman, they did this, which was a little unusual because they usually liked obscure songs, and Mr. Postman was a number 1 for the Marvelettes in 1961. It was immediately part of the Beatles live show with John Lennon singing lead vocal. Now, they played it 100 times or more before, and on July 30th of 1963, they did the official recorded version of it, which would wind up on the With the Beatles album. It's double-tracked John Lennon's lead vocals, and they had to change some of the lyrics, as they did from time to time with girl group songs. They just had to change the girlfriend and the boyfriend. The other song you're going to hear about is also from the With the Beatles album, and also a Motown song. It's Money, That's What I Want, and they recorded it on July 18th of 1963. It was first done by Barrett Strong in 1959, and it was Motown Records' first hit. The Beatles just loved it, and as soon as they heard it, it became part of their act. They performed it live a whole bunch, and they tried it during the failed Decca Records auditions in 1962. They also played it for the BBC a bunch of times, so when it came time to record it in the studio, they were quick, efficient, and knew what they had to do to get a solid performance. George Martin plays the piano on it, and technically, it's the opposite of Can't Buy Me Love. On the With the Beatles album, there are 8 originals and 6 covers. It was released in November of 63. Now, later in the following year, for the Beatles For Sale album, which was the Beatles' 4th album, they had a similar issue where they had some Lennon-McCartney songs, but they didn't have enough to fill the whole album, so they had to record other people's music. One song that they did for this was Words of Love by Buddy Holly. Now, this is the only official Buddy Holly song that the Beatles recorded. Over the years, there's a bunch of them that were performed and somehow wound up on a recording. Usually they were unofficial recordings. Many have been released by this point. The very first thing they ever recorded was That'll Be the Day. You'll hear a little bit about that. We'll talk a little bit about how the Crickets might have inspired the Beatles, because they're both bugs. The Beatles performed Crying, Waiting, Hoping for the Decca Records auditions, and October 18th of 1964, they recorded the official version of Words of Love for the Beatles' For Sale album. Now, there's some debate on who sings what on Words of Love, whether it's George and John singing lead, whether it's George, John, and Paul. There's also some debate on what the percussion is. It might be Ringo hitting a drum, it might be Ringo clapping his hand or slapping his knee, it might be him hitting a box. There's all sorts of details. It might specifically be Ringo hitting a suitcase that had a loose strap on it. That's how it's been reported. I hope you all learn a whole lot about these 3 very cool Beatles songs. Watch your email, and thank you as always. I will be back in a week. Everyone have a wonderful day. Thanks, Honey Pie. Wonderful week. Month. Make it a month.